Today we begin tonight with significant breaking developments in the disappearance of Nancy Guthrie, a case that has captivated national attention and is now taking what investigators are calling a major turn. Tonight we can report that the Guthrie family has been formally cleared from the possible suspect list, even as new forensic evidence points investigators toward an unknown individual whose identity remains one of the most pressing questions in this investigation. Let's begin with what we know at this hour. The Guthrie family issued a statement today making clear their position in no uncertain terms. "I will not stay quiet while they are re-victimized." This declaration comes on the heels of a critical development. Investigators have confirmed they found DNA inside Nancy Guthrie's home. Crucially, this DNA does not match any family member. More significantly, according to investigators, it does not match anyone known to be in close contact with Nancy Guthrie. This is a pivotal moment in the investigation. The presence of unidentified DNA at the scene fundamentally reshapes the investigative landscape. It transforms what might have been speculation into concrete forensic evidence pointing toward an outside individual, someone who was in Nancy Guthrie's home, someone who left biological evidence behind, and someone whose identity remains unknown to investigators at this time. But the DNA story doesn't end inside the home. Investigators have now confirmed they have found DNA inside a glove that was recovered approximately 2 miles away from Nancy Guthrie's residence last week. And here is where this case takes on additional complexity. The FBI believes this glove is a match for the glove worn by a masked man captured on doorbell camera footage. Think about what this means from an investigative standpoint. If forensic analysis confirms this is indeed the same glove, investigators will have established a direct physical link between the scene of the disappearance and a location 2 miles away. Forensic experts are now working to determine whose DNA is present in that glove. The answer to that question could very well be the key that unlocks this entire case. But the glove raises as many questions as it potentially answers. Our team visited the location where this glove was found, and the terrain itself presents investigative challenges. The glove was reportedly discovered in a field just off a road, an area characterized by dense brush and difficult terrain, punctuated by cactus and thick vegetation. The question investigators are now grappling with is straightforward but critical. How did that glove end up in that specific location? This is where investigative theory begins to take shape. Investigators are exploring multiple scenarios. Was the suspect in a getaway vehicle? Did he discard the glove by throwing it out of a car window as he fled the scene? Or was he traveling on foot through that challenging terrain? Each scenario has different implications for how investigators reconstruct the timeline and the suspect's movements that night. What we know is that investigators have doorbell camera footage showing this masked individual, this suspected kidnapper, at Nancy Guthrie's home. What they've been doing since is methodical and painstaking. They have poured through hours upon hours of street camera footage, looking for any suspicious vehicle that might have been in the area that night. This is the kind of granular investigative work that often doesn't make headlines, but frequently solves cases. The forensic team may have achieved what investigators are calling a breakthrough. They believe they have identified specific items of clothing worn by the suspect, including his face mask. According to investigators, these items were purchased at Walmart. They are also examining the suspect's holster, which investigators believe may also be a Walmart brand. Even the glove itself has been identified as a Walmart brand. Now, this may seem like a minor detail, but from an investigative perspective, this is enormously significant. Retail purchases leave trails: transaction records, security footage, credit card receipts, loyalty program data. If investigators can trace these specific items back to a specific transaction at a specific Walmart location on a specific date, they may be able to identify who purchased them. This is the kind of forensic retail tracking that has solved numerous cases in the modern investigative era. Authorities are deploying every available resource to locate Nancy Guthrie. One particularly notable technological tool. FBI investigators have deployed what is described as a signal sniffer specifically designed to detect Nancy's pacemaker. This represents the kind of specialized technology that law enforcement can bring to bear in cases of this magnitude. A pacemaker emits signals, and if Nancy Guthrie is within range, that technology could potentially pinpoint her location. The scope of this investigation is staggering. Authorities report they have already processed 30,000 tips. Let that number sink in for a moment. 30,000 separate pieces of information that investigators have had to evaluate, categorize, prioritize, and follow up on. At least 3 individuals have been detained at various points during this investigation, though all were subsequently released. This speaks to the aggressive, leave no stone unturned approach law enforcement is taking. There has been speculation that this incident may have been a burglary that went tragically wrong. However, sources speaking to Fox News have made clear that this is not a working theory inside of the unit. In other words, while investigators may be exploring all possibilities, the burglary gone wrong scenario is not where their focus currently lies. Supporting this assessment is new drone footage that provides aerial views of Nancy Guthrie's home, including angles of the rear patio and secondary access points. What this footage shows, or more accurately, what it does not show, is revealing. There are no readily apparent signs of forced entry, no smashed glass, no obvious indications that someone broke into the home. Now, as those who conducted this unofficial aerial survey noted, this is not a definitive forensic conclusion, but it does raise important questions about how the suspect gained access to the residence. And that brings us to some of the most vexing, unanswered questions in this case. How did the suspect exit the house with Nancy Guthrie? What was the method of departure? Was there a vehicle waiting? These are questions for which investigators do not yet have public answers. Then there is the matter of the ransom letters, a bizarre subplot in an already complex case. We do not know at this time whether any of the ransom letters that have surfaced are legitimate. What we do know is that TMZ continues to receive additional letters from someone claiming to have information about Nancy Guthrie's whereabouts. The most recent letter, reportedly the 4th such communication, contains specific claims. According to TMZ, this letter states, "I know what I saw. 5 days to go south of the border, and I was told to shut up. So I know who he is, and that was definitely Nancy with them." This is notably the second time this letter writer has referred to more than one person being involved, suggesting a main perpetrator but also others complicit in whatever happened to Nancy Guthrie. The letter also claims Nancy was taken to Mexico. The individual sending these letters is demanding payment in Bitcoin in exchange for information about who has Nancy Guthrie. The FBI is investigating these communications. But here is what investigators and the public must grapple with. This could be another hoax. We have certainly seen hoaxes in high-profile cases before. Individuals who insert themselves into investigations, who create false leads, who waste precious investigative resources. Yet investigators cannot afford to dismiss these letters out of hand. They will have to follow every letter, every lead, every tip, no matter how unlikely, no matter how potentially fraudulent. In a case where a woman's life may hang in the balance, law enforcement cannot take chances. Every lead must be pursued until it is definitively ruled out. This weekend, Savannah Guthrie spoke out publicly with an emotional appeal directed at whoever has her mother. Her words were measured but carried the weight of a daughter's anguish and hope. She addressed the perpetrator directly. "I wanted to say to whoever has her and knows where she is that it is never too late. We are not lost or alone, and it is never too late to do the right thing. We are here, and we believe. And we believe in the essential goodness, the dignity of every human being." It was an appeal to conscience, a plea for humanity, a belief that even in the darkest circumstances there remains the possibility for someone to make the right choice. Whether those words will reach whoever is responsible, whether they will have any effect, remains to be seen. But they represent the voice of a family that refuses to give up hope. Let's step back and assess where this investigation stands tonight. We know the family has been cleared. We know there is unidentified DNA both inside the home and in a glove found 2 miles away. We know investigators believe they've identified the suspect's clothing and that these items were purchased at Walmart. We know there is doorbell footage of a masked individual. We know 30,000 tips have been processed, and we know specialized technology, including pacemaker detection equipment, has been deployed. What we do not know is who this suspect is. We do not know where Nancy Guthrie is at this hour. We do not know if she is still alive, though her family clearly maintains hope. We do not know if the ransom letters are legitimate or elaborate hoaxes. We do not know whether this was a targeted abduction or something else entirely. What comes next is continued forensic analysis. The DNA from the glove could provide the breakthrough investigators need. The Walmart purchases could be traced back to a buyer. The 30,000 tips may contain the one critical piece of information that changes everything. Somewhere in the massive amount of data investigators are processing, there may be the pattern, the connection, the lead that brings Nancy Guthrie home. This is a case that demonstrates both the power and the limitations of modern investigative techniques. Law enforcement has extraordinary tools at their disposal: DNA analysis, facial recognition, retail transaction tracking, signal detection technology, massive databases of video footage. Yet despite all of this, a woman remains missing, a family remains in anguish, and the identity of the person responsible remains unknown. Tonight, the investigation continues. The forensic work continues. The analysis of those 30,000 tips continues. And a family waits for answers, cleared of suspicion, but no closer to having their mother and loved one returned home safely. This is a developing story, and as investigators piece together the forensic evidence, trace the retail purchases, and analyze the DNA findings, we may be approaching answers. The glove, found 2 miles from Nancy Guthrie's home, may prove to be the physical evidence that breaks this case open. Until then, investigators are asking anyone with information to come forward, and a family continues to hope that whoever has Nancy Guthrie will, as her daughter said, do the right thing. We will continue to follow this story and bring you developments as they occur. For now, Nancy Guthrie remains missing, investigators remain focused, and the search for answers continues.